With the new Xiaomi 14T Pro, I wanted to compare it with the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. I wanted to see how good a T-series Pro model is going to be compared to a Xiaomi 14 Ultra. There's definitely a price difference between the two phones, but also I wanted to see how much of a difference is going to be in terms of usability and quality. Starting off with displays, both of these are AMOLED panels, with the Xiaomi 14 Ultra being a little bit bigger than the Xiaomi 14T Pro. Being that those are the AMOLED displays, the colors are definitely amazing, contrast is definitely there, and also the blacks are real blacks. So it's really nice in terms of just the sheer quality of the screens. The difference here is the 14 Ultra has a bigger screen than the 14T Pro, and also it is a different kind of an AMOLED display. The 14T Pro has a up to 144 Hz display, meaning you can take advantage in gaming, but it's actually not an LTPO, meaning that you cannot change from 1 Hz to 144. It's more about going from 30 to 60 to 90 to 120 and then to 144 if that app actually supports it. Where on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra we have an AMOLED LTPO display, meaning you can go from 1 Hz all the way to 120. Depending on what you're doing on the phone, example if you're reading the news, it's gonna go down all the way down to 1 Hz. But if you're, for example, gaming, it can go up to 120 frames per second, so 120 Hz. And it's definitely a more premium screen than the one on the 14T Pro. But just side by side, I'm gonna have to say they're pretty much both amazing. They're identical in terms of just, side by side. You're probably gonna notice, but those specifications are there for a reason. The LTPO means that it's probably a little bit better for power saving in terms of just side-by-side comparison. Also, the Xiaomi 14T Pro has a totally flat screen, where the 14 Ultra has rounded off edges, but it's all the way after the screen pretty much ends, so you don't see the screen itself bend. In terms of the build, Xiaomi 14T Pro is now in the metal body. Essentially, you have the metal on the back and the side panels, where on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra we have the aluminum frame and the synthetic leather vegan back. So it's a little bit different to the touch. I would say the leather feels really nice. I was always against those, but I personally have grown to like them. They just feel really premium and really soft in hand, but the metal body is definitely a nice one in your hand too. So in terms of just the build quality, both are amazing. I would say it's at this point personal preference if you want to have aluminum and the synthetic leather on the back, which is really nice to touch, or if you want to have a metal body on the back. In terms of software, both run on the Xiaomi's HyperOS, which is on the Android 14. So essentially you have the same software experience. But the internals are a little bit different. In the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, I have 16 GB of RAM and 500 GB of storage. And in terms of 14 Ultra, I have the 12 GB of RAM and 500 GB of storage. But both these phones have a model with a terabyte of storage, but there's more RAM on the 14 Ultra compared to the Xiaomi 14T Pro. Also, another difference is in the Snapdragon versus MediaTek. On the 14 Ultra, we have the latest and the most powerful Snapdragon to date, which is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. At the moment, it is pretty much the top Snapdragon you can get, and it is on the 14 Ultra, meaning you can play games at the highest quality settings, and it overall is amazingly good in terms of just the sheer power it provides. On the 14T Pro, we have the MediaTek Dimensity 9300 Plus, which is a different manufacturer, but the Dimensity this year pretty much is almost as strong as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 on synthetic tests. And I can definitely say in the many games, this can be felt because this phone definitely delivers much better quality in terms of gaming, in terms of resolution and frame rates than its predecessor. I'm gonna have to say the MediaTek really is much closer to Snapdragon in this regard, and we have to remember that this is top of the line and the Ultra model from Xiaomi, and this is the T series in the Pro version, but it's a much more budget premium smartphone, so it's a little bit different price range when comparing the two. The Ultra is definitely a pricier model, but the 14 Ultra is just a little bit more pricey than the 14T Pro in Poland at the moment. So depending on your market, this might not be a huge difference in terms of price, but the MediaTek is definitely not far from it. In terms of speakers, I have to give the edge to 14 Ultra once again. I just feel like the 14 Ultra in almost all regards is the top of the line what Xiaomi has to offer, where the 14T Pro is, I would say, like the budget premium smartphone. So you get everything in really high quality, but it's not as good as the 14 Ultra. And the same thing can be said about the speakers. The speakers on both are stereo speakers. Both actually support Dolby Atmos, but the speakers on the 14 Ultra are not only stereo, but they're just much bigger, and because of that, better sounding and with more bass and overall clarity. So they're bigger speakers on the bottom and on the top, or on the 14T Pro. We also have the bottom and top speakers, but it's just a little bit smaller, and because of that they're not as clear and just not as good as on the 14 Ultra. In terms of battery and charging, there's a difference here too. Both of these are 500 milliamp hour batteries, but the 14 Ultra charges up to 90 watts in the wired mode. And you also get the charger in the box, where the 14T Pro charges up to 120 watts. So it's definitely the faster of the two. And I can definitely feel the difference after using the 13T Pro, so the predecessor of the 14T Pro, for the last year, and now I've been using the 14 Ultra. I can definitely feel the difference that the 90 watts is definitely slower than the 120. But the 14T Pro doesn't have the charger in the box, which is a bummer, and I feel like it's the first time I've seen that from Xiaomi, and I just wish this is the last time, because I really love that they provide everything. You have the screen protector on the screen, you have the cases included in the box, and also the chargers, but not in the case of 14T Pro. And if not for having the 13T Pro, I would not be able to test it at its full potential unless I got the charger separately. In terms of wireless charging, the 14 Ultra is the faster one, with 80 watt wireless charging if you get the charger that can output the 80 watts. So definitely this is the faster of the two in terms of wireless. But the charger is going to cost a little bit more too. In terms of 14T Pro, we actually now have in the T series wireless charging up to 50 watts, but it's now here in the T series too. And in the box you get the two, cases. This is being a hard plastic, while this is a more softer plastic. And now the part that probably the most important part for many and just overall the most fun for me, the cameras. The cameras on the back of the 14 Ultra and 14T Pro. This is where the 14 Ultra really shines, and where 14T Pro feels like the, a flagship killer, but it's not as strong as the top of the line flagship. Triple system that we have on the 14T Pro, with the light on being one of the circles. We have the main sensor, which is 50 megapixel. We have a telephoto, which is a 60mm equivalent, so a little bit more than 2 times zoom, which is also a 50 megapixel. And then we have a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle lens on the 14T Pro. Where on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra we have a quad system with 4 lenses, going from wide angle lens to a periscope lens, so pretty much from 0.5 zoom all the way to 5 times zoom, and all of those being a premium 50 megapixel sensors, all of them being a high-end premium sensor for a smartphone, and the main camera sensor actually being a 1-inch sensor. Not only that, it actually has a variable aperture, meaning you can close and open the eye to let in more or less light into it, which is a little bit more of a pro camera. Essentially, you can definitely feel like the Ultra is the ultra model for photography, and the 14T Pro is more like a flagship killer and competes with different kind of phones, where the 14 Ultra is just top of the line in terms of photo. I just feel like the Ultra is much more consistent because of all the different focal lengths, because of the nice sensors that they have on all of them. There are 3 different ones other than the 1-inch sensor, are all the same sensor, so you can definitely feel it's more consistent across all the photos. Where the 14T Pro, just like its predecessor, it just feels a little bit less, consistent across the lenses, with the wide-angle lens being once again the worst of the 3. In terms of video, it's once again the same situation. 14T Pro is definitely an amazing smartphone for video. You have the 8K in 30 frames per second, 4K in 60 frames per second on the main and telephoto, and on the wide angle you have to go to Full HD 60 frames per second or 4K 30 frames per second, unfortunately, and you can record in 4K 30 frames in log format if you want to have a little bit more fun in post-production. And also you can record in Master Cinema mode with 10-bit and with the movie mode with a little bit of background blur. On the 14 Ultra we can record up to 8K 30 frames per second, 4K 60 frames per second across all 4 lenses, which is really nice because on the fly, while recording, you can change between the wide-angle lens, main, telephoto and periscope lens on the fly while recording without having to stop the video, which is really cool if you wanted to use it that way. I just love that you can do this on the Xiaomi phone. And also you can record and log up to 4K 60 frames per second on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. So once again, a step up from the 14T Pro. You can also record in Master Cinema with 10-bit colors and in the movie mode with background blur. In terms of the selfie camera, it's once again better on the 14 Ultra, but most notably for me, the selfie camera on the 14 Ultra can finally record in 4K 60 frames per second instead of the 4K 30 frames that the Xiaomi 14T Pro provides, but it's still an upgrade to its predecessor, which was locked to Full HD. Overall, it's not an easy battle for 14T Pro. We're stacking it up against the top of the line 14 Ultra, meaning the highest that Xiaomi has to offer at this time. You can definitely feel that this is the top of the line, where this is a little bit more of a budget option, but it's definitely, in my opinion, a flagship killer at this price and how good it actually is. I would personally recommend both of them depending on your budget and what you're looking for in a smartphone. So in my opinion, both are amazing, just different price bracket and overall what they provide for you. But for their price, they're pretty good. I just feel like the 14T Pro could have been a little bit, priced a little bit better because of the lack of the charger, but other than that, those two phones are amazing. If you have any more questions about those two smartphones, let me know in the comment section down below. With that being said, it's gonna be the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video once again, and I'll see you next time.